Boss around a coronation market. No say drop because she talking. Load from mama baskets, turn an economic market, yeah, yeah. More time there, but she have to walk it. Still she stand firm like a market. No, she know me, but we spit again with sweetie and with chocolate, yeah, yeah. Mama, you are down, so I have once run the bird till you come home, yeah, yeah. Mama, you are down, I in a front, so I have once sweep the yard till you come home, yeah. Mama, you are down, I have once take care of my little brother them till you come home, yeah. Mama, you are down, you are down. Mama, you are down. Mama, yeah. Papa, why you fed? Hey, mama, strength and upliftment, help us to prepare, yeah. So we not go gonna jail. Hey, mama, words of wisdom, fresh like bread, we never stale, yeah. I know the crowd around. You come and talk about your son for your money, make you well, yeah. This son of fairy tale. Remember, you leave us like you and in the belly of the world. You never get there when we are in for hunger. Leave us for the much, much longer. I know them teeth, mama goods in the street and she has slumber. She will it out. Yes, full of getting like thunder. My feelings white squall and pulsar. And show mama where we go to school. She try get the cash back number. And she alone. Mama, you alone. So why you go and watch the play till you come home? Yeah, yeah. Mama, you alone. I know front, so you go and sweep the yard till you come home. Yeah. Mama, you alone. I am one take care of my little brother them till you come home. Yeah. Mama, you alone. You alone. Mama, you alone. No, I you come, mama. I embrace what you preach, my mama. Now, falter, I practice what you teach, my mama. Yes, true, your pain, I shall believe, my mama. So, me not touch the road, and God squeeze no hammer. She said, so make sure you them know a friend. School at least.
Welcome, welcome, everyone, to another edition of Truth Gangsters. Thank you for joining me. Just doing a quick check on the audio. If you can just drop a thumbs up in the chat and let me know if you're hearing me clearly. Tonight's discussion, single mothers, matriarch or villain. Thanks for everyone in the room. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Daniel. Happy to see you again. We missed you. I'm going to be sending out a few invites for anyone who would like to come up on stage. I'm going to ask Daniel and anyone else who is on stage to just mute their mic in the meantime so we can avoid some of the feedback. Thank you so much. Perfect. Everyone is hearing me. Welcome, welcome. Truth Gangsters tonight. Interesting topic. Single mothers, matriarch or villain. A Fatherless Nation is the title of a January 2021 article by Hatley Headley describing the state of a significant portion of Jamaican households. According to Headley, while there have been very few dedicated studies about the issue of fatherlessness, it is estimated that 47% of Jamaica's population live in single-parent homes with their biological mothers. She goes on to state that in 2014, Peter Bunting, the then Minister of National Security, declared that fatherlessness was driving much of the crime that plagues Jamaica's streets. The situation in America is not much different. As of 2020, there are statistics which show that approximately 53% of children, live in single-parent households, primarily with their mothers. And I must say, this statistics was specific to black children. Now, for most of us, these statistics merely confirm what we already know to be true in our daily experience. There are many black people living in the West that are from single mother homes, and that number is rising every year. The social commentators, politicians, psychologists, and the like all warn us that we should be very, very concerned about these statistics. They remind us often that this state of affairs has detrimental outcomes for our children. But they have interestingly labeled this as a single mother crisis, or, as some would say, a fatherlessness issue. Why are the children fatherless? Where have the men gone? Have the men left and gone to some faraway land? Why have these experts chosen to frame the problem in this way? Why are the fate of our children resting solely on the marital and or relationship status of their mothers? Why has the system of patriarchy demonized the life giver for being without a partner? You see, by calling it a simple single mother epidemic, we conveniently blame women instead of addressing the waywardness of our community. Primarily, that men have failed to build their community. They have failed to mentor the children that they have sired and that they have not sired. Quite a divergence from our African philosophy that it takes a village to raise the child. They have attached their fathering to whether they're in a woman's bed. What kind of society demonizes mothers? What kind of philosophy states that our responsibility to raise children in our community is contingent upon whether a man is in the home? Is that us as African people? Or is it a product of slavery and, by extension, the concept of the nuclear family that has been foisted upon us? Look at what's happening in China. Look at the children in kindergarten. I'm sure you've seen the viral videos. Children learning to make combs, cook food from scratch, grow their own food. That's not happening because men are in the homes. It's happening because men are in the community, working, responsible men in leadership. And of course, China is a patriarchy, just not the kind that leaves women to raise children on their own and then ostracizes them because they just can't keep a man. And what of the woman? What has she become? We see it. We're not going to hide from it. She's often mean, cold, abusive to her children, toxic, masculine even. But I dare say this is a result of being a matriarch with no matriarchy. A matriarchy with no power, no resources, no support, and no respect. Terrible state of affairs. So I want us to look at it from all angles. You may or may not agree with me. I welcome a robust discussion, a robust debate. Feel free to share your thoughts tonight. Leighton, Daniel, Ashley, I see you're all on stage. Who would like to respond first? Leighton, I see you removed your mic. Lovely.
Yes, that was a very loaded opening. Uh, Matriarch or villain, she's both to me. And you can have a villainous matriarch, so you can even split it three ways. But let me begin with the well, first, let me agree with you. that the concept of the nuclear family is detrimental to us as Africans. Let me also say that of some large percent of single women are not voluntarily single. So even assuming uh, an adoption of the nuclear family model or philosophy, um, several of these women were not careless about finding a partner. They were duped, tricked, um, and manipulated, all kinds of things. And then they end up single mothers, financially disadvantaged, um, a lot of times outcast, shunned by family, etc., etc. And the difficulties that their children experience um, laid at their feet, all of which is extremely unjust, except for those women who directly bring that state upon themselves, which I think is a larger number than the statistics dare to or deign to show. Thanks for my child. That philosophy where the single mother becomes so celebrated as a symbol of martyrdom that women who had help raising their children feel embarrassed to say, I had help raising the child, because they can't get near the kudos that the mother who fathered me could get. And you have a lot of women, whole heap of women, excluding the father, willing fathers, excluding them willfully for spite, vindictiveness, and plain old stupidity in thinking that this is their project and trying to prove that a mother alone is sufficient and can do it. And the stories are legion of those women. When the teenage boy at 12, 13, 14 had threatened to lick her down, she sent him right back to the father. To do what at that stage? So that's my opener on both sides of the issue.
Thank you, Leighton. I think it's interesting what you said about this idea of women becoming voluntary single, because I don't want us to lose sight of why single mother is being posed as such a major sore in society. The reason we're given is not because women are lonely. It's not because women are miserable. It's not because we have these single mother serial killers just going around wreaking havoc on society. The problem that we're told of single mothers is that the children are being ruined. And I'm particularly concerned about why should that be? Why should the community sit back and allow children to be ruined? Because women, even those that are voluntarily single, even those that have been careless and had a one night stand, why does that mean that our children have gone to hell? What is the responsibility of the fathers, the men, who claim that they're being spited or whatever? What have they built? We see in our communities, where is the after school program? Where is the mentorship from the men? Where is the groups, the civil society groups that men are forming to demand relationships with their children that they're supposedly being stripped of? And of course, I know that there are individual cases that go against this narrative. But in the main, if children are ruined because of single mothers, why is that? Ashley, I'm so glad you're with us this evening. I hope you have some opening remarks to share with us. Perhaps Ashley is not quite ready. Daniel, would you like to give your opening remarks? I'm going to invite Trish as well and a few others.
Hello, good evening. I am still gathering my thoughts because this is obviously such a loaded topic, and I really don't even know where to begin. But on one of the things that were said in that single mothers, some single mothers deliberately try to prove that a mother alone can do it. Um, I think that I think that's true in a lot of cases, um, which is what um, affects the community raising of the children, in the sense that if the mother is led to believe that she can raise the child by herself, the input of not only the father but the extended family members become less relevant. And sometimes you have even cases where mothers are unchecked for any type of um, behaviors that may be harmful to the family, because people in Jamaican terms will tell you, say, it's not your pitney, a fear one, it's her property, she can do what she want, whether it's good or bad. And a lot of people have that attitude. But I don't want to lend myself to one side of the narrative and sound biased. I feel like it's very complicated, the things that lead to women alone raising families, even though some people are not aware that, I believe a lot of women are not even aware that they are behaving in ways or choosing to be single. I find that couples that I've known before children who were monogamous for the most part and happy and seemingly healthy. In a lot of cases, as soon as a child comes in the picture, the dynamic changes, and the arguments are that, the women just now want, she doesn't have to be with the man anymore because she has his baby, and that's enough leverage to interact with him or control him or something like that, which is one side of the narrative. On the other side, there are men who deliberately are dishonest, and they woo you, and they are in a relationship with you, and as soon as the child comes in the picture, they start all of a sudden having doubts. Before you were fine, and all of a sudden they have reasons and they disappear. So it's very hard to say at that time that the single mother is the villain. But and why are fathers not creating organizations to fight for um, access to their children, because fathers don't bear them. So it's easier for them to walk away, and essentially that puts the onus back on women to decide, no, are you gonna still be superhero? Are you gonna broker any form of resolution with the opposite sex? Because while single mothers get the praise for when the child does well and get the praise for doing it all on her own, um, she also, I believe, face the negative sides of raising children on your own, which is more stress. Your lifespan, I assume, may be shorter because you're having to overwork yourself to raise a family, especially if you're not doing it without like extended family help. But I am thinking I'm going to pause there for
Thanks
now.
for that, Danielle. I should point out, or share rather. I saw a recent interview with Janine, and she was talking about her experience with motherhood and living in East Africa, and how, it was such a beautiful experience for her because the women of the community all come together. They help to raise the child, and the community values tend to support this. So again, for me, I see the reference to extended family as similarly problematic with the hyper focus on the nuclear family. We just don't have a culture of raising our children. That's my view. But Ashley, I hope you fixed your mic issue. Are you ready to join the conversation now? Perfect.
Hello, everybody. Good night. I don't. Can you hear me, host?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. I was struggling with the IT. Um, you put a lot on the table in the opening. I always think that you only have a paradox or a dilemma when two sets of conflicting ideas or two sets of experiences can both be true, and I think that's the case here. Uh, You mentioned, as I said, it was quite a lot. What struck out at me is your mentioning of the concept of community, and and one of the things that I was reflecting on, not just with reference to the family or children, this idea that we have great community support in a lot of cases for a lot of us is a myth, is a story that we tell ourselves about ourselves, but the actual experience of living doesn't really bear it out. And so I wouldn't even say that there's a focus on the nuclear family. I think our culture has become hyper individualistic, right? It's hyper individualistic. And so you have people making decisions for themselves, but the decisions that they make, whether to have children or not, to support the children or not, have very big impacts on other people, but they aren't socially, they're not necessarily sanctioned for making those decisions, right? Whether it is the workless man who have a lot of children and don't support them financially or emotionally or psychologically, which is also very important, not just finances, or the woman who knows because she sees that a man has low value because of how he has dealt with his existing children, but chooses to have children with that man. Our culture is very individualistic, and so in an individualistic culture, um, values, attitudes, and also the ideas about community is very minimized, and the most vulnerable in society, who are the children and then women, suffer as a result of it. right? So that's one. The other thing I would say that was discussed is, why is it that men don't fight for the children? I think in some cases is not knowing how to. One of the things that always strike me about looking at some other communities is how young boys and young girls, they're raised to be compatible, right? So a young girl is raised to be a partner to a man, and a young boy is raised to be a partner to a woman. And so when they get to that point of selecting and developing a a partner to have a child with, they're already ahead of the game. They know what they're looking for the most part. They know what makes a good one or a bad one, and they also understand a little bit about how to, what is it that I need to do in terms of my behavior, my choices in order to make this relationship work. So there's a huge benefit for the children that come out of those kind of partnerships, because community and partnerships have already been inculcated into their parents, right? So I spoke with an anthropologist through this work that I was doing on security and safety. This was this was quite a few years ago. I think it's Herbert Gale, who has also done some work with 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 fathers, particularly in low income communities. And some of the stories that the fathers told me, although you're getting one side of the story, and people say there are two sides, but there's really three sides. uh a lot of men don't really know how to be these builders. They don't know how to be fathers, in a case where a mother might prevent them from interacting with a child because the relationship ended in a bad way. There is a lot of fear, there is anger, and there is also shame as a very powerful emotion. And those things tend to cause a lot of men to withdraw from responsibility rather than taking it up. I'm not saying it's a right response. I'm just giving you the view of some of the people who have been caught in these situations. So I'll just put those on the table for now, and continue to listen to the other contributors.
Thank you for that perspective, Ashley. Trish, you had your hand raised. Feel free to give your opening remarks.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for inviting me again.
Oh, sorry about that, Kush. I think Trish was ahead of you. So
Oh, sure, 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 sure,
Trish, if
sure.
you're ready,
No problem.
please unmute your mic and go ahead. I know that sometimes. Oh,
Oh, never. Oh,
Trish is back with
hi.
us.
Hi, it's been a minute. Um, oh, this is a big one. It's a big one. Um, what's his name? Ashley made some valid points, some really good ones. Um, villain or matriarch. Um, once you're a single mother, you become a matriarch whether you like it or not. You know, because for the most part, and is there going to be a distinction between, I didn't catch the opening, single mothers or unmarried mothers? Because there's a difference, because you have some, but I guess we're going to run with the general thing. I think a lot of people lack the emotional intelligence to be parents, and they have a lot of trauma that they haven't recovered from or sought help with, and so therefore they haven't, because they haven't healed, they're not in a space to become parents. um a lot of people, they're having intercourse.
I'm sorry, Trish. I'm seeing in the chat where persons are asking if you could project your voice a bit. You're a bit low.
This happens. Am I louder now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. I lost my train of thought. A lot of the mother. I lost my train of thought. The single mothers, they have a lot of trauma they haven't recovered from. So, and they're coming from one single mother. Their moms were single moms. Their grandmothers were single moms. So they don't know any better. It's not only the men. They really don't. And a lot of people don't vet the person they're sleeping with because a lot of times they're having fun and then braps them pregnant. Some of them don't even know the last name, and it goes both ways. It really does. So we need to make better choice in our partners, as you said, and we need to want more. We need to want more for our kids because I'm unmarried. I have one child, but I make the effort for the dad to be active. I do make that effort. Um, it doesn't matter whether or not we have a fight because we have produced a child. That child comes first, regardless of whatever that child comes first. A lot of people aren't there. They will never be there. And I heard you talk about community and we're lacking. Uh, it depends on the socioeconomic strata you're from. Because at a low socioeconomic strata, there are not really any consequences for these men. But when you go to middle class and uptown, there are consequences. You hardly, if ever, find quote unquote baby mamas uptown. And if you do, then the men step up if it's even financially.
Yes, Trish, but it could be that they're stepping up for the uptown children. Many of these quote unquote ghetto children are product of uptown men who have so-called ghetto girl side chicks. So they might be facing consequences where they live, but they don't face consequences generally.
Um, when this is not such a one, they moved them from the ghetto and put them. What's the name of that apartment complex of Manning Street, Constant Spring Road, Oakland? They put them there so they're near, so they're nearer. Um, it doesn't have, it won't have an effect on their social, on the place in their a place. It won't have effect on their place in the social ladder. It won't, because that woman from the ghetto doesn't threaten the status of the wife uptown. It's like when a certain dancehall artist, before he got married, and that European chick, the stalker chick, followed him to Jamaica, and she was allegedly deported, um, because that chick threatened the socioeconomic status because she looked like his spouse, so she could threaten her space in on the social ladder. So is that kind of consequence? Yes. So that yes, ma'am.
Boy, Trish, you always have the tea. That's why I love when you join us. But just I want to address something you said before I allow Kush to give his opening remarks.
Mhm.
You said that when a woman becomes a mother, she's an automatic matriarch. I just want to know what definition of a matriarch we're using, and certainly for this discussion, the dictionary defines a matriarch as a woman who is the head of a family or a tribe, a woman who rules a family, group, or state. I don't know if single mothers, certainly in Jamaica, I don't know if any of them have such a community status. But hold that thought, Trish, and let me hear the opening remarks of Kush, so we can get some different perspectives. Kush, are you ready to share with us? You can go ahead now.
Sure. Good night, guys, again. Um, yeah, I think the phenomenon of single mother, um, not to be cowardly, for lack of a better word, or bypass the interior problem, but is one of the side effect of the system. Um, I think, as Ashley say, you have careless man all over, whether uptown, Middletown, or downtown. The problem is that the ones them that are not quote unquote worthless are really about self. You know, they're really about how them can solve their issues, and that's what's really making single mothers being any kind of problem in our society, because anything can make a woman single mother. Tomorrow the man can die. Um, Anything can happen. Yeah, so the society in a way where him can get lose him job, get coward and run away, you know, run off with the next woman, whatever cause single motherhood. But it shouldn't. The problem of single motherhood is not that she's single. The problem is that it's causing an effect on the children and on her as well. So if we had things in place to bridge that gap, then there wouldn't be any issue of a woman not having a man at home, because the community men would be involved. Now, to get to that involvement, we have to kind of define what community raising the kids mean again. I think we have to redefine it, because now we can't even start an organization because a man of the day work 9 o'clock. And if him own business, he must dead probably 5 o'clock. So it's like we have to find a way how to define it and how to support it. Because when we talk about African culture of community raising the kids, even in the rural area of Jamaica, where I think it was more, um, a better example was there of community raising the children in the rural area. They had support system, not just people coming over to wash, but when I come over to wash, how do I eat? When your children come to my house, what do I feed them? You know, so we have to have when I want somewhere to live, who build my house? You know, so our support system have to be redefined in a real way until, of course, until we get rid of the issue of the system, but it have to be redefined in a real way. So whatever cause single mother, it doesn't have an effect on our community, on our children.
Thanks, Kush. You know, Ashley, you made a very good point about individualism as it relates to the nuclear family. And I am cognizant of the issue that, even Daniel mentioned also, that if you, man or woman, if you have an individualistic approach to how you see life, see your children, then certainly that will impact upon how the community is able to take part in child rearing. But I just want to remind us of something in history. Kush talked about time and organization. One of the positives. Kush, could you mute your mic, please? I'm getting some feedback. If you could mute your mic. Kush, please mute your mic. Thank you. The Black Panther Party, some of us may have forgotten. Primarily, a lot of the men in the Black Panther, but let me not say primarily, but a lot of the men, the cadre in that organization, organized what is known as the free breakfast program for school children, where they would actually have meals issued out, hot meals issued to children. There are people like Huey P. Newton, Fred Hampton, these men who understood that their children, the black children of the community. These men weren't their fathers. Huey P. Newton and Fred Hampton died when they were very young men, right? These men ensured that there was something going into the stomachs of these children on their way to school. These are just some basic things we can do, basic things to bring back the honor and dignity of our community. Why is fatherlessness repeatedly connected to whether a woman is single? If I have a child, there is no reason, if the community is sane and running how it should run, even under oppression. When this is 1969, where the Black Panthers organized this, some of the most racist periods of American history. Why we can't? Why are the children fatherless? I still don't know. I still haven't heard why the children are fatherless. Leighton, I see you're excited to
Yes,
respond.
well, I'm I'm very glad for Kush's contribution, bringing it back to um, why does the welfare of the child have to depend on the relationship of the parents? Um, but I was very intrigued by Daniel's contribution about a culture, and it's a culture that I have seen deepen as I've grown older in Jamaica. That says that the child is the property of the woman. There was a time where if a woman dealt with her child a certain way in public, there would be murmurs of disapproval from members of the public that would cause her to moderate her behavior. That's now a thing of the past. If anybody dares to say, Mommy, you can't say that to the people. What? Are you pushing out? What? And not just she, but other women. And it's if you well, let me not personalize at this juncture, but in a culture of that nature, it becomes difficult to, like, one feels almost helpless. I had a friend once she was a teacher, and she would tell me stories about active attempts by mothers to frustrate their children's growth and development and bucking the school system like heavily to do it. And I'd always say to this friend, boy, you know what fathers go through. You understand what fathers go through. Because it's one thing to, as a father, be fighting a mother to not disadvantage the child. But if that father was even looking for community support, say in the way of a school, as you mentioned, the things that these Chinese people are doing in schools, which is a great social lever for ameliorating the evils of the nuclear family system. But when the single mother can buck the school system, even so, and so many in the school system itself, that take the single motherhood thing to a kind of deity. It's like, so I think basically what I'm saying is, for there to be any organization, there has to be some cultural shift that says that the child does not belong to the mother. The community has to wrest the child from the mother to the community. The community first has to reorient its mind. Because right now the community believe that the child is the mother's property. That's our biggest problem.
Thank you, Leighton. It's interesting though, because to my mind, part of how it becomes so easy to make the single mother villains in this particular scenario is by doing exactly what you said, by making it her child. You need to choose better. Next time, find a good man. Next time, don't be a hoe. Next time, don't chase the man away. That's your problem. Me not mind no man pitney that it was not my pitney. We've spoken about this, Leighton. This this derangement, as you would call it, in the manosphere, where men don't even want to become stepfathers or they demonize stepfathers. So I don't know which should come first. If we say that a woman's lot in life as a mother is her doing, her problem, and 100% her responsibility. If it goes bad, she needs to choose better and do better. But at the same time, we're going to say, ma'am, it's not your child. The community has a say. The community would like to take part. The community would like to chastise you when things go wrong. So, Daniel, you were the person who had originally raised that point. So I don't know if you'd like to respond at this stage.
I do, but can you give me a few minutes, please?
Sure, no problem. In the meantime, I'm going to read a comment in the chat from T Hill. Sadly, here in Jamaica, and I imagine other places, men believe if they can't have sex with you, then they're not gonna do anything for the picnic in any way. So many baby mothers become single not by choice, but just because. Anyone want to respond on stage? Trish, go ahead.
Um, the, there are ways and means to go about things. When you're pregnant, you get the father active. If he doesn't, you get his name on the birth certificate. When you get his name on the birth certificate, there are pros and cons to not having his name on the birth certificate. Um, in the US, if his name is on the birth certificate, you can't get a passport for the child without the dad's signature. He goes on child support. In Jamaica, there are ways and means to do things too. Get in terms of fathers not being active, your name is on the birth certificate. You can put your name on the documents in the child's school. You can do that. You cannot alienate a man from being a dad. You can't. He must not want to. It no matter how much you push him away. It doesn't. He needs to, as I spoke about emotional intelligence before. If he wants to be a dad, no matter how the mother chew fire and a spit blood, because they're no longer together. If it was a careless situation, if it was a fun thing, if it was a one night stand, okay, you produced a child. Know what your rights are. I have a friend who his child wasn't being taken care of, and he was contributing financially, and he took her to court and he took that child. He was in St. Catherine and she ran with the child way to Westmoreland, and he went to Westmoreland. He made the effort and he got his child. So all these excuses about character, accusations about character and if you're deserving or not, a lot of people don't have or don't care to have the emotional intelligence to take care of their children because they see it as a badge. The religious religious indoctrination where, oh, you have out your lot and God will provide. That's another part of it too. No, you can't. Uh, Fathers are vilified too much. They're vilified too much when a lot of people, they don't make the effort. They really don't. If you make the effort, it can work. Put yourself aside. It is no longer about you. And I speak of this from experience. You have your falling out and the child needs whatever. You're going to be in your feelings where the child needs whatever, you can't provide it, so you're not going to ask the father for it or have him step up because you're in your feelings. No, get past your feelings. It's no longer about you. It is no longer about you. It is about the child or the children. There are things on the books that that you have recourse. If you want, where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. And you need, when one parent is absent, you need a figure, whether it be a father figure or a mother figure. Where there's a will, there's a way. I will not. I'm from a nuclear household situation, and I'm not falling for all of this. No, sir. Mm-mm. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Trish. Um, I know that many people would strongly disagree with you that a woman cannot alienate the father. I don't know if I would agree that there are no circumstances where a man can be alienated. But what I will say is that men in this circumstance they need to pick a struggle. They need to pick a struggle. They can't on the one hand say, men are the primary persons who are in charge of government, organizing gangs. They take control and do things by force when they need to. When they see it as important, they take things by force. So this idea that they're these powerless men, they're so powerless and they're the victims of these evil, controlling women who are dominating and preventing them from being fathers in the main. Not to say that there aren't individual circumstances that might be exceptions. But in the main, this attitude that women are so powerful and these big bullies, when gang, war, scammer, everything is controlled by men. Why don't they use the same initiative to take back the children they claim they so desperately want to father? Leighton, feel free, jump in.
Boy, I asked myself that question as a father whose children were kidnapped and taken away from him and brought back as adults with a mother who want to reconcile and get back together. The thing that distressed me as a young man at the time was having grown up hearing about the problem of fatherlessness and absentee fathers, and thinking that any woman would be glad for a man who was as interested in being a father as I was. When she started to demonstrate an intention to exclude me because I no longer wish to be in a relationship with her, and I saw all the people who knew of how involved a father I was and how close that child was to me. And there was absolutely no pressure at all from her family, co-workers, all the community, all the people that I had introduced her to, friends from there was no pressure on her ever to say, how can you exclude Leighton from Sadiq's life? That's number one. Number two, when Trish talk about there's nothing a woman can do to alienate a man, listen, when a woman is gonna make up with a stepfather to have the girl give a false report of sexual molestation against her father, and that's not a one-off case. There's a whole playbook of paternal alienation and false charges of sexual abuse is number one in the playbook. You're saying that every father should demonstrate his willingness to open up himself to that. Him have other picnic to live for. I want to know. Listen, every time I hear people come with that drivel, and oh, just go to court. Do you know what the court is like? And this is where I have to agree with Kishi mightily. Many times as a lawyer, I sit down in court and say, then no man control this bomber. Oh, this go so. But it is dread. Dread, 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 dread. When they talk about the community that sits by and applauds a man who has to go to the ends of the earth for his children, at the expense of other children he might have, at the expense of his own family relations, at the expense of his job, at the expense of his health. For a woman who is doing that for no God Almighty reason but spite her vindictiveness, and the community sit down, and before the community say, woman, you can't do that, and put pressure on her for act right, the community sit down and weigh whether the man expend enough effort or not. To me, that's just so much bullshit.
Wow, thanks for that, Leighton. You know, the thing, Leighton, if what we see in communal chatter all over social media, printed media, is any reflection of what men prioritize, it's hard to make a case that men are in general, again, I know there are isolated cases, or there are cases, let me not call them isolated, but it's hard to make the case that men in general are concerned with paternal alienation. The topic, and this goes for the Caribbean and African American, the topic foremost on black men's minds, it would appear, is the woman submissive enough? Has she hit the wall? Let's go 50-50. I'm a high value man. I need to be polygamous. I need to have 1,000,000 wives or whatever. Even the female advocates, the Shahrazad Alis of the world, I don't hear this large outcry from men and male representatives of this issue of paternal alienation. So it leads me to question whether men are really bothered by it at all.
Well, Kish, I never knew that so many men suffered from it until I started talking about it. And in every gathering where I would speak about it, some person would tell me their story. Now, there was one case where I was at court. Sadiqi was born the same day as the child of one of our legal colleagues. And so every time she saw me, she would ask after him. And of course, when he was taken away, every time she would see me, she would say, "You hear anything yet? You hear anything yet?" And she asked me once in the vicinity of a senior counsel, rest in peace, Mr. Coates. And he came over to us and he said, I couldn't help but overhear you. And then he said to me, the same thing happened to me, and it has destroyed me. And he used the present tense, has destroyed me, and how he would drink himself into a stupor, and his helper would wake him up and tell him, sir, you can keep it up, him going to kill himself. And men go through all kind of things, because when she takes away the child, she paints you as an unfit father. This is for men who this is for men who wish to have a relationship with the child but don't want to have a relationship with the mother. And you always hear about the man who don't want to mind the child because the mother won't have sex with him. Nobody wants to talk about the man that don't want nothing to do with the mother and just want to deal with the child. And true him no want to deal with the mother. Every obstacle, every hurdle, every lie, every contention must be put in the way of that. And all who know it's not true and all who talk on political platforms about fatherlessness and what have you will sit by and watch that woman work out her vindictiveness and just say, well, you should did left her.
But Leighton, Ashley made a very good point about the issues of shame that can be associated with men trying to be in their children's lives, etc. And I don't doubt that to be true. The problem I'm having is when this discussion comes about, whether men feel alienated paternally, whether women are bullying them, and, the shame they may feel, or whatever it is that's holding them back from speaking about it more publicly or taking steps to address this. We don't hear the same things that we hear of single mothers. So if you say that a man should not be expected to seek out his children, hell or high water, because he has other children, then we have to say, well, is the fatherlessness as a result of the woman or as a result of sexual indiscipline? I'm just putting it out there. Do we say to the fathers the same thing we say to the mothers? Choose better. You see? This is why I'm saying it's a community issue, not so much an issue of relationships or marital status or the nuclear family.
Uh, um, hello?
Yes, we're hearing you, Leighton.
I was told that I should have chosen better many times. Um, and I've dated this on my Facebook page. I think there are equal hurlers of epithets of choose better on both sides of the gender divide. Every time a woman get dealt with badly by a man, the stupid manosphere man them, and some other stupid women as well, talk about, oh, she should have chosen better. They don't even, let's not even get to what choices the community conditions these children to make. And many times it's children, you know? So even from the aspect of looking at somebody whose choices were totally limited, and then when they go ahead and make a mess of their own life, you turn on and tell them, say, they should have chosen better. But yeah, so I'm the society does, and men all the time. tell other men that um, they should have chosen better all the time, and not to mention women. You know,
Yeah,
that's it.
I don't know. I don't know, late now. I might want to challenge you on that. I don't. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it's nowhere the responsibility for choosing. I mean, there was a mantra going around in the manosphere for several years that men control access to marriage, women control access for sex. So the idea of choosing your child's father is squarely placed in our society, our community, on the woman. When a woman is in a bad single mother situation, it's squarely her fault, you know? So I don't know. We might have to tussle a bit on that. Um, Daniel, you said you wanted to respond.
Yes. Oh, my voice sounds like it's not here. But so I wanted to bring up that this point of or line of reasoning that I believe to be true, which suggests that respect for the father and love for the mother in the parental relationship, whether both parents are in the home or separated, has a lot to do with how the child develops, in a healthy way. So whether, as Trish mentioned, right, some people are emotionally immature, and whether they're the man or the woman, which whether they're emotionally mature or not, the relationship between the mother and the father, if it's untenable, it's very unlikely that the parenting will be a cooperative one, and it's likely that the woman the woman will end up being a single mother in that situation. And because
Hold on, Daniel. Are you saying the woman's ability to be cooperative is relevant to her being a single mother? And I'm not following that connection.
well, I wasn't singling out the woman because in the very word cooperative, I mean both of them working together. So if either one is unwilling, then I mean the likelihood is that the woman will be the single mother, because that's the pattern. Most of the time the children are left with the woman. So I'm not saying, yeah, that's what I'm saying, if that makes sense. And um and and in such cases, I believe that because we have this pattern of, right, people, generations of people who are going through the raised by emotionally immature people, these dysfunctions become norm, and they're passed down over time, and the problem becomes almost chicken and egg, which one comes first. And I feel like it's very hard to escape the pattern of dysfunction because it's so structured throughout generations. And through whatever means, mentorship, education, whatever means, I believe that the parent who is most responsible or most mature should be the one to extend the olive branch, which is very challenging, um, whether it's the man or the woman. So I recall you saying, and the men should build things, and where are the organizations, or the women should, oh well, not, or so. I think it's the in for each individual household, um it has to be the person who is most mature that has to broker that um, transaction. And I believe, in terms of villain, the true villain is the parent who is unwilling to do better. And sometimes it is the mother, and sometimes it is the father, and unfortunately sometimes it is both.
Ashley or Kush, did you want to respond to what has been said so far? Leighton, did you have a response?
Um,
Not hearing you, Leighton. I think your mic went off. Yes, you
okay.
can go ahead now.
Yes, not necessarily.
Okay, I'm gonna read some of the comments in the chat. Not every man wants to be a father and all that it includes. They just want to say may have however many youth from T Hill. Kush says that is true. Even a lot of Rasta have a saying that gal for breed and Jah will take care of that. Other men just thinks a gal for get breed. Trish says it all comes down to getting the person you're sleeping with or vetting the person you're sleeping with rather. Linda, I went as far as to suggest to one man that mentioned he didn't like condoms and that he can't do celibacy. I told him, then why don't you get a vasectomy? And he got offended. Well, if you can't control your urges and you can't take accountability, then take away your right to procreate. It all comes down to the deteriorating condition of society. More and more people have no morals or blur the lines between what's morally correct and don't think about the consequences. Kush also added, we have also romanticized the suffering of our women, like saying mama makes something out of nothing, not seeing the amount of pain mama had to go through. So I think in the back of many men's head, she will make do. Very interesting points there in the chat. Is this an issue of lack of empathy? I know Daniel mentioned that um, sometimes it's the father is the problem, sometimes the mother is the problem. Do we have empathy for the single mother, especially considering what we know statistically of how many women become single mothers, whether by virtue of sexual abuse, grooming, extreme poverty? You know, I see men with a lot of statistics throwing around saying that single fathers make better parents. So I'm just interested, is it a matter of one-sided empathy when we look at this issue and the whole politics behind choose better, etc.? Leighton, are you ready to share?
Yes, indeed. I'm intrigued at the issue of lack of empathy for single women. I have a daughter. She's now 8 years old, and I dote on her, I guess. And it occurred to me when I was talking to her mother the other day that if the mother asked me for something that is at least as expensive as something that the child asked for, the child would get it way before the mother. Because I tell myself that I want the child to have the experience, I don't want the child to be denied, whatever it is. But even though I know the mother needs it, she can wait. She can wait. And if she loves me, she'll wait a little longer. And if she knows that I'm spending money on the child first, she can wait a little more longer. And so, even for those men who are giving their child due consideration, and when I say due consideration, we're talking about a single mother, but let's say a man, send her money a month time. But he's not really spending, if she spends any of the money on herself, he's livid. Because she have box food out, I pick them out. But he's not thinking that where is she to get sustenance from for herself to take care of the children. So it's really, and from what I see, not just manosphere doctrinaire positions, which I really consider to be, as you mentioned earlier, really deranged people. But even people who would consider themselves, you know, not part of the manosphere, the lack of empathy. So let me give you an example. Um, my daughter lives with me. I have to get her hair done, and it costs $7,000, $5,000 to $7,000 where we do it. Her mother styles her hair just as well or better. Um, and I decided to just send her to her mother when a particular hairstyle was used on the child that I was not told would cause her hair to pull out if it wasn't undone after 2 weeks. It's not her mother who told me, it was the hairdresser downstairs. Anyway, afterwards, I said that I, excuse me, please. Um, yeah, I'm trying to get away from that person walking with a music box for the whole road.
Is
Yes,
that
where
a
was I?
is that a single mother passing? No, no, no.
Yes,
It's a child of a single mother. Carry on.
where was I in this story?
The hairstyle you were advised would cause your daughter's hair to fall out.
Right. So I said, it's a shame that I'm spending all this money to do the child's hair when I could just send her to her mother and get it done. But then I started to feel bad, like, I'm saving like $7,000 a week or a fortnight. And so I said to the girl, how much do you think I should send money for your mom? She said, yeah. I said, how much? And she said, two, which is what I'd planned to send. So I did send it. Anyway, I put it on Facebook, and the outrage, like somebody was saying she shouldn't charge to do the child's hair. And I was like, she didn't charge, you know. I offered it. Well, if you want to sweet up the mother, just say you want to sweet her up. Don't broke her bad. And this was from a lot of these comments were from women, by the way. So the lack of empathy. I mean, I couldn't, and I posed it very. I wasn't even trying to defend myself. I don't even think in the comments I had stated whether I sent the money. I was just trying to find out, what was the thinking. And like, if you're actually saving money, why wouldn't you want it? It's laborious pulling out the hair, washing it, treating it, what have you. Of course, it's her daughter, but it's like 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours of her time. And the fact is, if you had her and you were spending that money otherwise, why couldn't you just, and it's our thinking on stuff like that, we really have to
when we demonize single mothers, we really have to address our own biases and prejudices and just way of thinking.
Yes, I absolutely agree, Leighton. I think we need to have an open dialogue when it comes to that. I don't particularly believe there is empathy, but let me see what Danielle said in the chat. I believe there is a lack of empathy when she's pregnant, especially as a young mother, and there is no father. However, once she gets to a certain maturity, then she receives this empathy. Linda responded, Danielle, I was about to turn 30 when I had my first child. I am currently 38. I'm waiting on my empathy. LOL. There's no empathy. I've heard it all. Well, you should have gotten pregnant to a guy you know better. Really? Because I was married to him. Well, you were just a baby when you had them. No, I wasn't. I just don't look old. You know, it's I'm laughing, but it's a very serious issue, this idea of empathy. And I would challenge Daniel's point that this perception that women receive empathy as mothers is really rooted in the fact that the bar is in hell. The bar is truly in hell. I don't know who has the year for when Michael Manley helped to put in legislation that women could get maternity leave. That was very recent. Most workplaces with all the modern um, trappings and all the advancement we've supposedly made don't have a creche, don't have a place for mothers to have their small children while they work in the offices. Corporate Jamaica, corporate America doesn't organize business surrounding motherhood. You know, what is the empathy? Is it because, as Leighton said, oh, she can squeeze off a 7 grand from her baby father to comb her child here, and people are going to say she don't even deserve that? What is the empathy that we speak of? Because frankly, I'm not seeing it. Anyone wants to respond?
Well, I well first let me turn off the fan because okay. Um, well first let me say I am not a mother, but I was going off observations, personal observation or anecdotes, and I it is my observation that when young women, especially teens and early mothers, have children, there's often this kind of scorn or talking, condescension towards them, that they did something bad or they were reckless, and there is that's where I describe there being um a lack of empathy. And in fact, one personal um thing, one member of the family had another child, and apparently, the dad didn't want any more children, and the mother did. And so there came another child, adding to, a high number. And the women on my side of the family were like, you know, talking bad about this person's wife because, he doesn't want any more children and whatever, whatever. And I said to them, and I said, but they're married and she couldn't have made the baby on her own. And they everybody would just, you know, go quiet and not want to entertain that part when I say, well, our family member who is the male in the situation, I said he didn't want any more children, but he didn't do anything to prevent it, and she can't have it on her own. Anyways, let me move on from that. Um, Another point I want to make is that, in terms of receiving no empathy, is around women who I see a lot of complaints, especially here in Jamaica, but from women who go to the hospital to have their babies, and if the father is not present, that they receive an enormous amount of abuse, mistreatment, and made to feel shame from female staff. Um, and, even if the woman is married and the father isn't there for whatever reason, work overseas or what, there is this shame that is they're made to feel from the man not being there. So that's when I speak. Those are the instances that I talk about when I say there's a lack of empathy before. But I believe that there is a shift in a lot of cases, which the shift I'm talking about relates to what Leighton um, mentioned earlier about single motherhood being, um, highlighted as something to achieve, to prove that you can do it on your own. There are lots of women who want that success story of being the woman who did it on her own and raised this child on her own. And there's a lot of heroism to be celebrated in that narrative. And I think those women receive praise and empathy when people are shifting and saying, "Oh, she's doing it on her own," and then they start to cuss out the absent father, and the empathy is on the mother. So those are the instances when I say lack of empathy, and then it shifts.
Daniel, I think we might be conflating empathy in real life as with tokenism and the concept of motherhood and the mother being canonized. To my mind, if single mothers receive, or mothers in our society, whether you're single or not, receive actual empathy, there would be tangible benefits. There are European countries that if you are a mother, for example, you automatically get a house from the government. You automatically get certain support. Certain European countries, maternity leave is 6 months to a year. Sizzler singing Mama Love You song and Rose every Mother's Day in every pharmacy with the word mother written on it, some bouquet in red, is not empathy. What power, what privilege does being a mother get you in our society? And what privilege does it grant you being a single mother? I can't think of much apart from, as you said, an empty boast. As the song said, "My good bring life. I'm a baby mother that. Yeah, man, me's a mother." What does it, these women who are bragging, or these children who are saying, the father, my mother was the father who raised me. They were raised in abject poverty. These women oftentimes went through unbearable sufferation and embarrassment to be those single mothers. They didn't receive help. So not whether government or community. So I don't know. And even in many cases, if we really want to get down to a real conversation, a lot of the times the only help these women get is by sleeping with other men that are not the child's father. Or they have to be granting sexual favors to the child's father. So I'm just not seeing this empathy. I'm not seeing the discussion about how a good number of our women, young women, become mothers. I know my sister was a doctor in KPH, and when the underage girls would come in to have baby, they would cuss them like dog. No one thinks to cuss. Why are women single mothers at 17, 18, 16, 15? So I'm just not seeing the empathy. But of course, you know, go ahead, Leighton.
Yes, I agree with you 100%, Keisha. And the manosphere, especially the black manosphere, is this derangement of talking about a lion killing the puppies of the previous lion. And this thing where they are actively shaming men away from stepfatherhood with like a complete disregard. Like the children should be punished for the scarlet letter sins of their mother. I, is I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about that. I words fail me. But I think that at the very least there should be some empathy for the child. And if there's a, it seems like there is the need to punish the woman overwhelms the need to rescue the child. And so the child must be punished along with the woman. That's the feeling I get. Because if there is any way to help the child that will ameliorate the woman's condition, it's like there's a reluctance. You can almost sense reluctance to even consider it because the woman must suffer the consequences and know that she's for the streets.
And so you arrive at my at the same concern I have, Leighton, that my suspicion why we have this so-called issue of fatherlessness to the point where the children are suffering, it is to punish the mothers. Because we know that if we were to really step in and help the mothers, or help the children rather, the women would have an easier time. Their life wouldn't be so hard. If the community, if the men of the community mentored and fathered the community as a group, women would have an easier time. And I think you hit the nail on the head. For many, the reluctance to do that is because they want women to suffer.
I think that's part of it, Keisha. Um, I don't think we have a very empathetic society, and not just on this point. But if you if you look at primetime news, which I call a nightly horror show, right, and you see some horrible crime taking place, whether it's somebody being sexually assaulted or a car accident or a murder, the number one thing that the respondent who they put the camera on say is they should have done this or that. Right. For me, empathy is about the ability to try to place yourself in the shoes of the person who is experiencing a thing and look at why they may be acting or reacting in a certain way, and granting them a bit of grace. That is the empathy. But I think somebody said earlier about our emotional retardedness, or our emotional closed off. We're emotionally closed off. We're not raised to be emotionally intelligent. We don't interrogate our thoughts, our perceptions, and our own attitudes. We're not raised to think about those things and do the internal work, and that affects so many things. I saw a clip today of a man who the man got in an accident with a taxi man, and he drove off, and then the taxi man proceeded to drive him down, break the glass with his female partner in the car, the first one that drove off, and an assault took place. And I'm like, why are these three people reacting in this way, right? And so our inability to really interrogate our thoughts, our actions, and to make decisions based on what is good for us and what is good for the people who are close to us is really hurting us. Right. A point was made about the manosphere. Um, I I think it's important that we understand that this is a small slice of public opinion, and is an extreme slice of public opinion.
Really,
It's just like
Ashley?
when Tyler.
Ashley?
I do think so.
These
I do
these
think
these
so.
You are
podcasts,
wrong. You are wrong. You are
Ashley,
wrong.
Ashley,
Hmm.
these podcasts has millions of followers and thousands of comments. And there's
So,
so many of them. Like, are you really saying it's a small amount?
or maybe, all right. So maybe instead of saying small, yeah, it's a sizable following, right? But I don't think that the people who think like that with the extreme fresh and fit views, right, are in the majority. I think I was about to make the Tyler Perry comparison and the horrible ways in which he portrays both men and women, and and connected to the point you made, Keisha, about the fact that we see all these gifts and things on Mother's Day, that there's a market for these ideas, right? And it's often the extreme loud ideas that are commercialized in the market. And so it gives, if you're not careful, you think, oh, every man out there don't want nothing to do with being a stepfather. When in reality you see so many stepfathers, right? And I think
That's
from if we
true. That's
if we,
very true, Ashley.
if we're talking about how to, the media is a court jester, right? We can't follow them. Them lie. If it's one thing Trump said that I agree with, is lying media, right? And if we think about, okay, the fact that we're in this situation where we're diagnosing this problem, we have to think about the things that we can do as people that will assist us to go in the direction that we should be going in. So when you see the single father doing a good job, tell him good job. When you say, I told this man this one day, and the man looked so shocked, I thought he was gonna cry because I saw him fixing up his daughter's hair as I was dropping my godson somewhere, right? Like nobody ever tell him that before, right? When you see the stepfather stepping up, um, you do the same. And if you have those, don't keep workless man in your circle who marginalize their children, because by doing that, what you're doing is giving support to the things that they're doing.
Welcome, Fabian, to the room, to the stage. Thank you so much for joining us. I see you have something to share, Fabian. Go ahead. Stage is yours.
Yes, greetings, Keisha. Greetings, greetings. Good to be here. Man, so many things to say, so many layers to this. One point that I'd like to bring up is the lack of protection of women, black women. Just my experience. I think we talk so much about what men need prayers are. Man, your stepfather, okay, but I think most important is we need to protect our women better. And what I mean by that is not only physically, but verbally and emotionally as well. When we hear comments being made, we have to step up to the plate. But with stepping up to the plate, you risk alienation, you risk blackball, you're gonna risk a lot. And that's why that's always on a tipping scale now. Which direction am I going to go in? Am I going to step out and maybe cause somebody to be uncomfortable, cause some friction, and do the right thing, or am I just going to stay in my safe place there and just continue the status quo of going on and on and on? So I think it's a very simple thing is are we going to be the change that we talk about in this room? And when this room closes, are we going to do something about it tomorrow and in the future, or we're just going to keep talking about shit, to be honest? Thank you.
Thanks for that, Fabian. You know, this idea of protection, especially when it comes to the black woman, uh, there's a quote from Malcolm X how many years ago, which is still so relevant today that the black woman remains the most unprotected person in our society. And also, Ashley, this idea of society in general being unempathetic. To me, the mark of a civilized society, the mark of your values, rests squarely with how you treat the women and children. Nothing can come before. To me, that's the foundation. So if we can't empathize with the very bodies, the very people, the very entities that are pushing the new humans, the population into the world, then what you mentioned can be no surprise. We can never have empathy for anyone else. So for me, that's where it starts. This is why for me the topic is so important. Because yes, you might say that a lot of these manosphere talking points are extreme, but what do we see in actual society? A single mother is ostracized for being reckless, for being unmarried, for being unable to keep a man. She is the one that faces the brunt of the consequences, and she receives no empathy. And that is what we see trickling down. If you don't empathize with your mother, if you can't sorry for a woman that carry a child 9 months and go through hours of labor, how are you going to sorry for the market man who have to hustle and suffer in the street? Not going to happen. Leighton?
Um, that's an excellent point, Kish. And when it comes to paternal alienation, um, and women are fingered as the culprit. In my personal experience, I would, when my children were living with their mother and their stepfather, and I would visit them for 1 hour on a Saturday morning when I would carry over the groceries. And the stepfather would um, throw a tantrum for 3, 4 days afterward. A man sees another man come to look for his children for 1 hour, for a whole week, 1 hour. And sake of that 1 hour, he must slam door and silent treatment and behave like a big fussy for 3 to 4 days. And he's not an isolated case. And when men get up and talk about how women are preventing men from having a relationship with their children and ignore all the cases of men doing that kind of thing, is really shameful.
Yes, indeed. But we're coming to the 2 hour mark, and I'm very much guided by the wisdom Fabian shared in terms of asking us to turn these questions within. What will be our next steps? What will we do after we've left this room, after we've aired out some of these issues? How will we take the necessary steps within our communities? So I'm going to ask that each person on stage give their closing thoughts. And if you can, just a suggestion on what we can do outside of having these discussions, or what you will be doing in your own personal life or in your own communities to make this change. Daniel, you want to go first?
Sure. As you just um, mentioned, what we will be doing, I immediately went back to my time in the classroom and the time that I spend with children through my books and all of that. Yes, no, I'm being distracted. Sorry.
No problem, Daniel. Anyone else wants to share their final thoughts?
Yes, Keisha, thank you for this room again. I would just like to implore all of us to, if you know of somebody in your community, if you happen to come across somebody in the grocery store who you feels it might look like a single mom, it starts with a kind word sometime, you know. It just starts with some upliftment of some sort. Just a kind word, hey, how you doing? And if you know them, you know, check in every now and then. Say, I just want to make you know, so you're doing a great job, man. And that's, I think we all have that in us to do. No cost nothing. Be kind to people. Thank you.
Yes, kindness is free, but also valuable. Leighton, your final thoughts?
Yes, I was very intrigued by Ashley's simple admonition that as men we should um, hold other men to account. Um, I speak to a lot of people just in my daily interactions, men, and especially younger men. I counsel against certain things, and this is how I am aware that the manosphere positions. I take Ashley's point that, of course, there are many stepfathers, very devoted stepfathers, etc. That may not be the case in 20 years' time because these ideas and philosophies have taken strong root. And so, in our daily lives and interactions, we need to be just, as I say, each one teach one. And when we hear these sorts of ideas, to push back against it, especially uh, amongst youngsters over whom or who look up to us for influence. And by that means to sort of create the kind of cultural shift that will make fertile ground for organizational infrastructure. As to that, you'd have to check me on the next global species. That's it.
Thanks, Leighton. Ashley, your final words for us?
All right, thanks again, Keisha, very much for having this clubhouse because it creates a space where we can delve into a very important issue that doesn't get the attention that it really deserves. Because as I said earlier, the media is really the court jester. Them not have nothing interesting or good to tell us these days. The two gentlemen who spoke before kind of summarize what my parting thoughts are. One is just to show people grace, right, with a little bit of understanding. When you see a single parent, whether it's male, or female, you see them doing a good job, tell them, right? Tell them they're doing a good job and they must keep it up, right? And the other is to support the values and also the actions that lead to a better outcome for us as a community and us as a country. Whether it is through challenging extreme views, which if left unchecked, can can really turn out not to be so extreme anymore, but mainstream, which would really be a problem. So we have to challenge those extreme views, and we also have to look at the behaviors of people around us and hold all the people responsible for bringing up our children to a better standard.
Thank you, Ashley. I can't think of any better note to end this room on. So thank you again for all who joined, for all the perspectives that were shared. Really appreciated having you. And I look forward to another enlightening room next Sunday. Have a good evening, everyone.